Roses are red, violets are blue. You're a heavy burden. No one wants you here. Those words still echo in my head like a curse. I can hear Danielle's voice saying, "Read it out loud, Mom. It's from all of us." I can see the laughter in her eyes, the smirk on Michael's face, the confusion on my grandchildren's little ones. It was Mother's Day. The one day I thought was mine. I'm Grace Taylor. I'm 74 years old. And that morning, I died a little inside. The sun had been kind that day, warm and golden, shining through the magnolia trees in front of my daughter's house. I'd woken early, put on my best green dress, the one that made me feel elegant no matter how many birthdays I'd seen. I even added a touch of lipstick, the same rose shade my late mother used to wear. I baked lemon cookies, arranged fresh lilies, wrapped them in lace, and told myself, "You're still part of this family. They'll be happy to see you." When I stepped onto Danielle's porch, my heart fluttered like it used to when she was little and ran to greet me after school. And she did, or rather, her children did. Grandma Grace, the smallest one, screamed, barreling into my arms. The other followed, clutching my legs. Their laughter filled me with the kind of warmth that no cardigan could give. Then I looked up. Michael stood in the doorway, tall and stiff, giving me a nod that could have been mistaken for courtesy if it weren't so empty. "Morning, Grace," he said flatly. "Good morning, Michael." Danielle appeared behind him, holding a tray of orange juice. "Mom. You made it. We've got a special surprise for you." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. But I ignored it. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, we were starting over. The house smelled of cinnamon and coffee, the sound of cartoons playing in the background. I sat down on the sofa, clutching my purse on my lap like a nervous schoolgirl. The grandkids giggled and whispered. Danielle disappeared for a moment, then returned holding a pink card covered with little flower doodles. "This is from all of us, Mom. Read it out loud so everyone can hear." I smiled, my throat tightening with emotion. "Roses are red," I began, my voice trembling. "Violets are blue." Then I froze. The next line blurred on the paper, but I forced myself to keep reading. "You're a heavy burden. No one wants you here. Your time has passed. It's time for you to go." Silence. Then laughter, cruel, sharp, echoing through the room. Michael doubled over. Danielle covered her mouth, but failed to hide her grin. Even the children, confused but obedient, giggled along. "Did you see your face, Mom?" Danielle laughed. "You should have seen yourself." "Michael, did you get a picture?" My voice vanished. The card slipped from my trembling hands and fluttered to the carpet. "Danielle," I whispered. "Why would you?" "Oh, Mom, don't be so dramatic," she said, waving her hand. "It was just a joke." Michael scoffed. "Yeah, lighten up, Grace. You've been a little too present lately anyway." "Too present?" I repeated, the words scraping out of me. "Well, you know," Danielle said, crossing her legs. "We've been talking. There are some really good senior communities nearby. Nice places, with people your age. You'd be more comfortable." The air left my lungs. "Senior living?" I said quietly. "You mean, send me away?" Danielle sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "It's not sending you away, Mom. It's being realistic. You're not young anymore, and you need help." Michael added, "We have our own lives to live." The oldest grandchild, little Ben, looked at me with wide eyes. "Grandma, why are you crying?" Before I could answer, Danielle pulled him close. "Come here, sweetie. Grandma's just being sentimental. I sat frozen, my hands gripping my purse so tight my knuckles turned white. All I could hear was Michael's laughter echoing from the kitchen. "Okay, Mom," Danielle said casually, standing up. "Don't make this weird. We'll call you later." I rose slowly, feeling every one of my 74 years in my bones. I walked to the door, forcing myself to keep my back straight. I didn't say goodbye. I just left. That night, my house felt colder than it ever had. The clock ticked too loudly. The photo frames on the mantel, pictures of Danielle's wedding, of me holding the grandbabies, looked like props from someone else's life. I sat down in my old armchair, the same one where I'd once nursed Danielle when she was 3, and I cried until my chest hurt. But somewhere between the sobs, something inside me shifted. The humiliation burned away, leaving behind something harder, sharper. Enough. Enough tears. Enough silence. Enough being everyone's afterthought. If they thought I was a burden, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, I made tea, sat by the window, and began to remember. How did we get here? How did the girl who once clung to my skirt become the woman who mocked me in front of her children? The answers were buried in 4 to 5 years of memories. It began when I was 29. Danielle's father left us without a goodbye, just a note on the kitchen table. "I can't do this life. I'm sorry." He didn't even say her name. That night, Danielle cried until her tiny body went limp in my arms. "Daddy," she asked through hiccups. "Daddy had to go far away, my love," I whispered, kissing her hair. "But Mommy's here. Mommy will always be here." And I kept that promise. I worked double shifts at the textile mill for 15 years. My hands bled from the sewing machines, my back ached from the endless hours, but every dime went to Danielle, to her food, her school, her dreams. When she turned 17 and wanted to study nursing, I sold my mother's jewelry, the last valuable thing I owned. "Mom, are you sure?" she asked. "Of course, my love," I said. "Your education is the most important thing." She graduated with honors. I remember standing in the crowd, clapping until my palms stung, crying as she hugged me and whispered, "We did it, Mommy." Later, she met Michael. He was charming, ambitious, polite. When they married, I gave them $12,000, half of my savings, so she could have the wedding she deserved. And when they bought their first house, I gave them $25,000 more. When the grandkids came, I became their full-time babysitter, unpaid, of course. Every morning at 6, I walked 6 blocks to their house, made breakfast, packed lunches, washed dishes, folded laundry. "Mom, I don't know what we'd do without you," Danielle used to say. "You're an angel." An angel. That's what I was, until I wasn't. The first signs came quietly. A sigh when I offered advice. A joke about my old-fashioned ways. Then the dismissive glances, the subtle distance. I told myself it was stress, that young people just got busy. But then the phone stopped ringing. The invitations stopped coming. And I found out through my grandchild about a small family dinner, for Michael's birthday, the one where I wasn't invited. "Oh, Mom," Danielle said over the phone, "it was really small. Just the 4 of us." But later, I saw the photos online, 20 guests, laughter, cake, and my daughter looking radiant in a dress I'd bought her for Christmas. I wasn't there. That night, I sat in the same armchair, staring at the dark window, and told myself it didn't matter. That they'd remember me next time. They didn't. And now, after all those years of sacrifices, after the sleepless nights, the double shifts, the checks, the babysitting, and the love, this is how they repaid me. With a cruel little card. And laughter. But I'm not done yet. They think they've broken me. They think they can erase me quietly, hide me away in some senior community. They've forgotten who I am. I am Grace Taylor. I survived abandonment, poverty, loneliness. I built my life from dust. And I'm about to remind them. Because this Mother's Day was not the end of my story. It was the beginning. I didn't leave the house for 3 days after that Mother's Day. The curtains stayed closed. The phone rang a few times, Danielle's name lighting up the screen, but I couldn't bear to hear her voice. I let every call go to voicemail. There were no apologies, of course. Just cheerful little messages. Mom, hope you're okay. The kids miss you. Or worse, don't be upset, it was just a joke. A joke. That word made my stomach turn. By the third night, I realized something terrifying. My humiliation wasn't what haunted me most. It was the emptiness that followed. For 74 years, my entire identity had been built around others, around her. My daughter. Her happiness, her comfort, her dreams. I used to believe that love meant giving until there was nothing left of you. Now I knew, it only made you invisible. The morning I decided to live again, the sky was gray and heavy, but something inside me was clear. I brewed coffee, black and strong, and opened the curtains for the first time. The house looked different in daylight, smaller, older, lonelier, but still mine. I walked through the rooms, touching the furniture I'd once saved months to buy. Every piece carried a story. The dining table where Danielle had done her homework, the sofa where my late husband had fallen asleep watching TV, the worn kitchen counter where I'd kneaded bread for years. This was my life. My history. And I realized I had given it all away, little by little, until I had nothing left to call mine except these walls. That's when I decided to take inventory. Not just of my possessions, but of my life. I pulled out an old metal box from under my bed. Inside were papers, bank statements, receipts, and a few faded photographs. My whole story, one that my daughter had long forgotten. I began organizing everything, making lists, adding notes. The more I worked, the clearer things became. For years, I had given them money, quietly, without conditions. $25,000 for their house down payment. $12,000 for the wedding. $8,000 for renovations. Monthly support when Michael lost his job. I did the math. Over the years, it added up to nearly $60,000. I stared at that number, the ink trembling slightly under my pen. That was more than my entire savings now. They said I was a burden. Funny. Without me, they wouldn't even own that house they live in. A slow, cold anger began to rise in me, not the kind that screams, but the kind that plans. That afternoon, I took the bus downtown. It had been years since I'd gone alone. The driver helped me up the steps, and I felt a strange sense of pride, independent, even if my knees protested. My first stop was the bank. I asked to speak with my financial advisor, a kind young woman named Felicia, who'd known me for years. "Mrs. Taylor, how are you?" she asked warmly. "I've been better," I said, smiling thinly. "I need some help with my accounts." I sat down across from her and slid my notepad forward. "I want to review every automatic transfer, every recurring payment, everything that leaves my account each month." She raised an eyebrow. "Of course. Are you concerned about something?" "Yes," I said quietly. "About being too generous." We went through the list: phone bills, utilities, insurance. Then she paused. "There's a recurring transfer of $500 every month to Danielle and Michael Taylor. Set up about 2 years ago." I nodded slowly. Cancel it. Are you sure? Positive. As she clicked the mouse, a weight lifted from my chest. One quiet decision, one invisible act of liberation. For the first time in years, I felt in control. On my way home, I stopped by the florist. The same one I used to take Danielle to when she was little, to buy roses for her school plays. The woman behind the counter smiled. Grace? It's been a while. Yes, I said softly. Too long. She wrapped a small bouquet of lilies for me, not for anyone else, just for me. I placed them in a vase on my kitchen table when I got home. Their scent filled the room, delicate and clean. It reminded me that life, no matter how broken, can still bloom again. That evening, as the sun set, I sat in my armchair and began writing a letter. Not to Danielle, no, not yet. This was for me. Dear Grace, I wrote. You've spent your whole life making sure others never went without. But somewhere along the way, you forgot yourself. You forgot that love is not slavery, and kindness does not mean silence. You've been underestimated, ignored, humiliated, but you are not done. Not yet. Not by a long shot. When I finished, I folded the letter and placed it in the same box where I kept all my old records. I labeled it Plan G. It stood for Grace. The next morning, I called my old friend Margaret. We hadn't spoken in months, not since her husband's funeral. Grace, she gasped when she heard my voice. I thought you'd vanished. I almost did, I said. But I'm back. We met for lunch at a small cafe downtown. She wore her usual pearls and bright lipstick, her hair perfectly styled despite the humidity. Over soup and sandwiches, I told her everything. The card. The laughter. The humiliation. Her face hardened with each word. Those ungrateful children. After everything you did for them. I nodded. I blame myself. I made it too easy for them to use me. She leaned closer. So what are you going to do? I'm not sure yet, I admitted. But I know one thing. I won't let them dictate how my story ends. Margaret smiled, the kind of smile that belongs to women who've seen too much and survived anyway. Good. Because you still have plenty of story left, Grace. That night, as I walked home from the cafe, the streetlights flickered on one by one. A strange feeling stirred in me, not sadness, not anger. Something deeper. Resolve. I thought about all the years I'd given Danielle everything she wanted, the education, the wedding, the house, the babysitting, the endless help. And how, in return, she'd given me shame. No more. When I got home, I made a list of everything I still owned, the house, the savings, a few certificates, the car title. I placed the papers neatly in a folder labeled private. If Danielle and Michael wanted to treat me like a burden, they were about to learn what that burden actually held. Because while they were laughing at me, I had been keeping records. Every check. Every transfer. Every signature. They thought I was just an old woman who forgot things. But I remembered everything. 2 weeks passed before Danielle called again. This time, her tone was sugary sweet. Mom. We haven't heard from you. The kids miss you. Why don't you come over for dinner this Sunday? I smiled faintly. I'm sorry, darling. I've made other plans. Oh? With who? She asked, her voice tightening. With myself. There was silence on the other end. Then a nervous laugh. Okay, Mom. Just don't isolate yourself, all right? You know how lonely it can get when you're older. Older. As if that word was a disease. When I hung up, I sat back and whispered to myself, "You'll learn, Danielle. You'll all learn." That night, I opened my journal and wrote down one final sentence. They wanted to put me away. Instead, I'll make sure they never forget me. I didn't know yet what shape my revenge would take. But I knew this much: the next time they saw me, they wouldn't be laughing. I have always believed that little things matter: a folded note, a saved receipt, a signature. They are the threads that make up a life. I learned to keep things safe. I learned to keep track. It turned out those little pieces of paper would be my armor. 2 days after my lunch with Margaret, I walked into the law office like a woman who owned the world, or at least was about to take back what was hers. Ms. Patel, an efficient woman with short hair and glasses, greeted me with that professional politeness that hides curiosity. "Mrs. Taylor, what brings you in today?" she asked, offering me a seat. I told her everything. Every check, every transfer, every night I worked a double shift at the mill so Danielle could have what she wanted. I handed her a thin stack of photocopied receipts, bank statements, cancelled checks, and a spreadsheet I'd made in my little tidy handwriting. I didn't cry. I laid it all out like evidence in a case. There is a strange power in watching someone read the truth and have it sit in front of them, undeniable. Ms. Patel didn't gasp or look shocked. She simply nodded and said, "You did the right thing by saving these. Many people don't. What do you want me to do?" I had rehearsed the answer in my head too many times to be nervous. "I want control back. I want the automatic transfers stopped. I want my name cleared from anything they've tied me into without my consent. And I want my will updated." She folded a pen and regarded me. "We can do that. We'll cancel transfers, change account access, and draft a new will and power of attorney documents. But understand, once you change beneficiaries or restrict access, you may spark a legal fight." "Good. Let them fight. Let them show the world who they are." Ms. Patel drafted papers that afternoon. I watched and signed in small, careful loops the way my mother taught me. I revoked the recurring transfers. I put a temporary hold on certain accounts. I removed Danielle and Michael as authorized users on my credit card. It felt like pruning dead branches from a tree that had been trying to grow in the dark. When I left the office, a small envelope containing certified letters felt heavy in my handbag. One was addressed to Danielle and Michael, notice of stopped transfers, and a polite request for repayment of large gifts, with receipts attached. Another was a simple declaration of my new will: the house to remain my property, and, should anything happen to me, to be placed in a trust for my grandchildren's education, not for Danielle. That line gave me the strangest, sweetest satisfaction. The next stop was the bank again. Felicia looked surprised when I told her I wanted to put my accounts under two-key protection, that any withdrawal over a small amount would require my lawyer's sign-off. "That will limit your mobility," she warned gently. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "Because my mobility has been limited by other people for too long." She smiled in a way that felt like alliance. "We'll set it up." By the time I walked out, I had a legal team, financial protections, and the certainty that money could no longer be taken from me with a casual phone call and a please. It was small. It was practical. It was mine. That evening I called Margaret. "I'm going to have dinner this Sunday," I told her. "Danielle will be there. I want an audience." Margaret didn't ask why. She just said, "I'll be there with bells on." I also called Naomi Pierce, the journalist Margaret recommended, a woman who could make the truth sing if it needed to. Naomi's voice hummed with restrained interest. "If you can prove the transfers and show intent, we can run a piece on elder financial abuse," she said. "But, Grace, if you want to protect your grandchildren, think carefully about how public you go. I heard the caution in her tone and agreed. This wasn't about spectacle. It was about justice. It was about stopping the quiet theft of an old woman's life. All week I prepared. I reorganized the house, not to be perfect. God knows it's lived in and honest, but to make sure my documents were where I needed them. I practiced the way I would speak, clear, without pleading. I told myself it wouldn't be theatrics. It would be truth laid out like plates on a table. On Saturday night, I sat at the kitchen table with a small pile of envelopes. I'd prepared 3 things for Sunday. 1, a letter I would read aloud to the family describing every major gift with dates and amounts. 2, the copies of bank statements and checks to hand to my daughter. And 3, a small printed copy of my new will flipped to the page where the terms were clear. I folded the papers slowly, as if tucking in old wounds. At 7:30 p.m. I called Danielle. "We're having dinner Sunday," I said. "At my house. Bring the kids. No gifts needed. Just come." There was a pause. Her voice smelled of canned politeness. "Are you sure, Mom? It would be easier if we came to you." "No," I said. "I'd like to host. It's been a while." She agreed. I heard the sigh of someone dialing up patience. "Okay, Mom. We'll be there." When I hung up, relief and an odd thrill rose in me. The plan had a date. They had accepted. The next day, as I prepared the chicken and a simple lemon pie, my hands moved with a practiced calm. It was surprising how steady I felt. The humiliation that had carved into my bones was being replaced with something else, a quiet, watchful courage. On Sunday morning I ironed the green dress again. I looked at myself in the mirror and noticed newly tender lines near my eyes, the map of all my years. I pinched a little of my cheek and smiled. "You've got this," I told myself. They arrived late. Of course they were late. Danielle swept in like she always does, phone in hand, hair in her usual effortless knot, kids trailing like satellites. Michael's greeting was short, but he carried himself with an easy confidence that I recognized as entitlement. We Saturday. The children ate in the dining room, their childhoods full of normalcy and cartoons. Margaret arrived on time, bringing a lemon tart that smelled like home. She planted herself at the end of the table like a guardian. I waited. I wanted them to be comfortable, to think of this as just another Sunday dinner. That was the point, to strip the performance of normalcy away, slowly, like removing wallpaper, to expose the damp behind it. After coffee I stood. The room went still without the need to ask it to. I held my papers in my hand and felt the weight of them like a scale. I looked at Danielle first, then Michael, then at the faces of my grandchildren who still thought I could fix scraped knees with kisses. "Thank you for coming," I began. My voice was calm. "I asked you here because this family deserves to speak honestly." My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. Danielle's smile thinned. "Is this a speech, Mom?" "No speech," I said. "Just facts." I set the envelope on the table and began to read. The list wasn't long, but it was precise: dates, amounts, reasons given, receipts. I read how I'd helped with a down payment, the wedding, the kitchen renovation, the monthly gifts when Michael lost his job. I read the names of stores, the amounts, the checks, everything I'd kept tucked away. Danielle's face flushed, then paled. Michael's jaw clenched. The kids looked between their parents and me, sensing the change in the air. When I finished, I slid the copies toward Danielle. "These are for you to keep," I said. "And these," I pushed another set toward Michael, "are for you." Silence stretched. Margaret's hand found mine and squeezed. The youngest, Ben, bounced in his chair, bored, while the older one studied the papers with the concentrated curiosity of a child learning arithmetic. Danielle's voice came out small. "Mom, why are you doing this here?" "Why now?" "Because you invited me to be honest," I said. "Because you laughed at a card and thought it was a joke." Her eyes flashed. "We were joking." "To you," I corrected. "You were in on the joke." Michael rose. "Grace, this is ridiculous. You're embarrassing us." "I embarrassed you," I said softly. "I'll remind you, you've been taking money I had saved for my own future. I helped you when you needed it. I did it out of love. But love isn't an endless line you can draw from." My voice was steady. "I'm not asking for pity. I'm telling you what I've done and what I will do." "What will you do?" Michael scoffed. I had rehearsed this answer. "I have set my accounts, so they require authorization from a third party for large withdrawals. I have stopped the recurring transfers. I have made changes to my will. And I've handed copies of every transfer and check to Ms. Patel, with dates. If you want to contest anything, you will do it through the courts. I will not beg." Danielle's face twisted in anger. "You can't do this. You can't change the will, Mom. After everything we've put into this family. You can try to sue me," I said. "But I did all of this while I was of sound mind. I am not being coerced." Her voice dropped, the performance faltered. "You're being ridiculous," she said, but her voice lacked the previous certainty. Then Michael did something I hadn't expected. He leaned in, face close, and said softly, "You don't understand what you've started." I met his gaze. "Oh, I understand perfectly." He straightened and left the room without another word. Danielle sat very still. The grandchildren looked at one another, sensing a storm without knowing its shape. There was a knock at the front door. We all turned. Margaret's hand tightened on my arm. "Grace," she whispered, "I didn't order anyone." I walked to the door, feeling a strange calm, like someone walking toward a verdict. I opened it. On the porch stood Naomi Pierce. Her coat was damp from the drizzle. Her eyes were bright and there was a small recorder in her hand. "Mrs. Taylor," she asked. "Do you have a moment?" Behind Naomi, across the street, I caught a glimpse of something else, a black sedan idling at the curb. Michael's car, or someone else's. The sight put a little chill in my bones. Naomi smiled gently. "I'm working on a piece about elder financial abuse. Margaret told me you might be willing to talk." My pulse ticked. This was more exposure than I'd planned for. I had said I didn't want spectacle. But I hadn't planned to be private and small either. Inside the house, I heard Danielle clear her throat, then a muffled, "Mom, what on earth are you doing talking to a reporter?" I looked at Naomi. Then at the faces behind her, Danielle, Margaret, my grandchildren. The room felt very small and very loud all at once. I made a choice. "Come in," I said. "Have a seat." Naomi stepped inside and took out her recorder. The tip of its little red light blinked like an eye. Before Naomi could ask a question, my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number: "You picked the wrong fight, old woman." My hand hovered over the screen. I felt the wind leave the room. I folded the paper I'd been holding, slipped it into my pocket, and walked back to the table. Whatever came next would not be quiet. But I no longer intended to be invisible. It's strange how quickly silence can turn into noise. 4 years my life had been quiet, painfully quiet. Then, within days of Naomi stepping through my door, it became loud enough to shake the walls. Naomi stayed that night for almost 2 hours. She listened more than she spoke, which made me trust her. She asked gentle questions, sometimes taking notes, sometimes just watching me with that calm gaze journalists use when they smell a story, but also respect its cost. "I'm not here to shame your family," she said. "I'm here to give your voice weight." People forget that financial abuse isn't always a stranger's crime. When she left, I stood on the porch under the drizzle and watched her car drive away. The street was empty again. But inside me, something had shifted. I wasn't invisible anymore. I had told my truth out loud, and the air itself seemed to hum with it. The article went live 3 days later. When Love Becomes Leverage, one woman's story of financial abuse by her own family. My photo sat beside the headline, a candid shot Naomi had taken in my garden, lilies behind me, my face soft but steady. She had captured me the way I wanted to be remembered, not broken, not pitiful, but awake. I didn't expect it to spread the way it did. Within hours, my phone filled with messages from strangers, mostly kind ones. "You're brave, Grace. You spoke for so many of us. My mother went through the same thing." And then there were the others. Cold words from hidden names. "Ungrateful old witch. Families shouldn't air dirty laundry. You probably deserved it." I deleted them, but they stayed in my head like stains. By evening, the TV station had called Naomi for a follow-up. She asked if I wanted to appear on camera. I said no, not yet. The written story was enough. My truth was out there. It didn't need a face every night. But Danielle thought differently. The call came the next morning. "Mom, what the hell did you do?" Her voice was shaking, part fury, part fear. I could hear Michael in the background, his words muffled but sharp. "Good morning to you too," I said. "Don't good morning me. You made us look like monsters." "I didn't make you anything, Danielle. You did that yourself." There was a pause, the kind of silence where I could hear her swallow. "You ruined our reputation. Michael's job is already asking questions. The kids' school. Maybe now people will understand what I've been through." "Through?" she snapped. "You think you're the victim. You've always controlled me with guilt. You never let me breathe." I let her words land, then said softly, "Sweetheart, the only thing I ever tried to control was my hope that you'd love me back." The line went dead. For the next few days, the air around my house felt heavier. I noticed a black car parked down the street more than once. Sometimes it was gone, sometimes it wasn't. Maybe paranoia, maybe not. Once, when I stepped outside to get the mail, I found my garden gate open and the bouquet Naomi had given me crushed into the dirt. Margaret came over with groceries, and that no-nonsense energy that made her the only person I could stand near. "Don't you dare let them scare you," she said, slamming eggs into the fridge like ammunition. "You told the truth. That's what matters." "It's strange," I murmured. "The truth makes you free, but also very, very lonely." She put a hand on my shoulder. "Lonely isn't permanent, Grace. Fear is. And you're past fear now." She was right. I was past it, mostly. But nights were different. Nights had whispers. One evening, around 11, I heard footsteps on my porch. Not the mailman, not a neighbor. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I froze in my chair. Then came a knock, soft but sharp. When I opened the door, Danielle stood there. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside. She didn't sit. She paced, hands clenched. "You embarrassed us, Mom. You went to the press. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. You humiliated me first, I said quietly. You just did it in private. Her mouth trembled. I didn't mean that card the way you think. Then how did you mean it? Silence. She finally whispered, it was Michael's idea. He thought it would be funny. I just went along. That's worse, I said. At least he was cruel with intention. You were cruel with cowardice. She sank onto the sofa, crying softly. For a moment, the mother in me wanted to hold her, to wipe her tears like I did when she was little. But something stopped me. You always took care of everyone, she said between sobs. And now you're punishing us for it. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm teaching you that I existed beyond what you took. She looked up, desperate. Can't we just fix this? Take the article down. It's not about the article, Danielle. I leaned forward. It's about the truth. You and Michael forgot who I am. I just reminded you. For the first time, she didn't have an answer. When she left, she didn't hug me. She didn't even say goodbye. But as she walked to her car, I noticed something. Her hands were shaking. 2 days later, Ms. Patel called. Mrs. Taylor, I've been contacted by your son-in-law's attorney. They're challenging the financial claims and threatening to sue for defamation. I sighed. Of course they are. Don't worry, she said. They have no legal standing. You have documentation for every transaction. But this may get noisy before it gets quiet. I can handle noise. Still, when I hung up, my chest tightened. Not from fear, from exhaustion. Justice has a price, and mine was sleepless nights. That Friday morning, Naomi visited again. She brought coffee and a small smile. The story's sparking conversation, she said. You've started something bigger than you realize. People are writing in, caregivers, widows, daughters, sons. You've given them permission to speak. I looked at her, surprised. Me? Yes, you. But I need to ask something delicate. Would you let us do a follow-up piece? We can blur names, but your voice matters. I hesitated. You think it will help? I know it will. I nodded slowly. Then yes. But not from pity. I want people to know that love shouldn't mean silence. Naomi's smile widened. That's the title, then. Love shouldn't mean silence. The follow-up interview happened at my dining table, same lilies in the background, same green dress. I spoke softly, plainly, no tears, no theatrics. I told them about single motherhood, long shifts, the exhaustion that hides under pride. I spoke of how generosity, when taken for granted, becomes a chain around your own neck. When the cameras left, I felt lighter, and older, too. Like I'd finally emptied something I'd been carrying my whole life. But peace doesn't last long in a house that people want to take from you. That night, around midnight, I woke to the smell of smoke. For one heartbeat I thought I was dreaming, then I heard the crackle. I ran to the kitchen. A small fire was climbing the curtains near the stove. I grabbed the extinguisher under the sink, coughing as the white foam swallowed the flames. By the time the fire truck arrived, the damage was minor: scorched curtains, blackened tile, a shaken old woman in a robe. The fire chief was kind but direct. Looks like something was left burning. Any candles lit? No, I whispered. None. He frowned, scribbling on his pad. Strange, then. We'll file a report. When they left, I sat on the porch steps until dawn, the smell of smoke clinging to my hair. My phone buzzed again. Another message, same unknown number, next time, you won't be so lucky. I saved it. Forwarded it to Ms. Patel. Then I locked every door and window and poured myself a glass of water with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. By morning, Naomi called. Grace, are you safe? How did you know? Someone sent an anonymous tip to the newsroom, said you'd had a fire. Are you sure it wasn't an accident? I don't know anymore, I said. But if it wasn't, they'll try again. There was a pause. Then we'll make sure the world's watching, Naomi said. If they think you're alone, they'll come for you. Let them see you're not. The next day, Naomi's team set up a small camera outside my porch for a protective feature, a day in the life. It wasn't about drama, it was about visibility. Danielle called twice and left voicemails I didn't return. Michael didn't call at all. By evening, the camera crew packed up. The house was quiet again, the lilies replaced, the curtains still smelling faintly of ash. I sat at the kitchen table, writing in my journal under the soft light of the lamp. I wrote, they wanted me silent. They'll hear me now. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. And then, a sound. Not thunder. A knock. Slow. Heavy. When I opened the door, the porch light flickered, and for a split second, I saw a shadow move across the yard, tall, broad, familiar. Who's there? I called. No answer. Just the soft creak of the gate closing. On the porch, lying on the doormat, was a single red rose. And under it, a note scrawled in handwriting I recognized instantly. We need to talk, before things get worse. Michael. The rose lay on my doormat, like a warning dressed as love. It was too perfect, too deliberate. Michael had always been the kind of man who used politeness like a weapon. Even his handwriting, that smooth, almost elegant script, felt rehearsed. I picked up the note with shaking fingers and read it again. We need to talk, before things get worse. Worse than what? Than humiliation. Than fire. I folded it carefully, slid it into the drawer beside my front door, and locked it. Then I sat down and stared at the lilies on my table, the same ones that had survived the smoke. Their petals were still white, still pure. I wondered how they managed to stay beautiful while everything around them burned. The next morning, Margaret came by, holding a grocery bag and her usual dose of blunt wisdom. You look like you haven't slept, she said, eyeing me. I haven't. Michael left me a note. She froze mid-step. What kind of note? The kind that smells like trouble. Margaret set the bag down. Grace, you need to call the police. I shook my head. Not yet. I want to see what he wants. Are you out of your mind? The man probably started that fire. I know, I said softly. And I need him to admit it. She stared at me for a long time. You're walking into the lion's den, Grace. Maybe, I said. But I'm done hiding from lions. That evening, I texted him, tomorrow. Noon. My house. Come alone. No response, but I didn't need one. I knew he'd come. Men like Michael always do, they can't resist control. I spent the rest of the night preparing. Not with fear, but with precision. I placed my phone on the counter, set to record. I hid Naomi's small camera behind the stack of cookbooks on the shelf. She'd given it to me after the first article, just in case. Then I made tea. Because if I was going to face the man who'd tried to erase me, I was going to do it with civility. He arrived the next day right on time. His car pulled up, dark and sleek, like a predator in daylight. He stepped out in a crisp suit, too formal for a friendly visit, and walked up my driveway with the calm arrogance of someone who believes he's still in control. When I opened the door, I didn't invite him in immediately. I wanted him to feel the threshold between us, the invisible line he had crossed too many times before. "Grace," he said, voice smooth as oil. "You look, well." "I'm alive," I replied. "That's something." He smiled, but his eyes were hard. "May I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. The air felt heavier as he entered. He scanned the living room, the camera, the documents on the side table, the framed photos of my daughter and grandchildren. His gaze lingered on Danielle's picture for a moment. "I didn't come here to fight," he said. "Good," I replied. "Because I'm not fighting anymore. I'm listening." He sat down, crossing one leg over the other, his posture perfect, his tone measured. "Grace, this has gotten out of hand," he began. "The articles, the accusations, you're destroying Danielle's life. Our children are being bullied at school. You've made us into villains." "You did that yourself," I said. He sighed, shaking his head. "You're angry, I get that. But this has to stop. You're not well, Grace. Everyone sees it, even Danielle's worried. You're paranoid, saying we're stealing from you, setting fires." I leaned forward. "You left me a note, Michael. On my porch. After the fire." His eyebrows arched, genuine surprise flickering, or maybe very good acting. "What note?" "The one with the rose." "I didn't leave you a rose." A chill slid down my spine. "Then who did?" He shrugged slightly. "Maybe one of your fans. You've become a bit of a celebrity lately, haven't you?" I said nothing. My hand tightened around my teacup. "Let's make a deal," he continued, his tone shifting into negotiation mode. "You retract your story. Tell the journalist you exaggerated, that it was a misunderstanding. In return, we'll forget the legal threats. No court, no scandal, no embarrassment for anyone." "You want me to lie," I said flatly. "I want you to think about your grandchildren," he countered. "They'll suffer if this continues. Do you really want to be the reason their lives fall apart?" His words were sharp, calculated. But guilt no longer worked on me. It had lost its power the day he laughed at that card. "Michael," I said, my voice calm, "do you know what I used to tell Danielle when she was little?" He frowned. "What?" "That truth always comes home. You can hide it, you can bury it, but one day it knocks on your door." He smirked. "So what truth is knocking today?" "The one about Nicole Jenkins," I said quietly. For the first time, he blinked. "What did you just say?" I stood and walked to the cabinet, pulling out a folder. "Nicole Jenkins. You made regular transfers to her account for years. I know because those payments came from the same joint fund you accessed after you lost your job, the one I helped fill." He went still. The mask slipped, if only for a moment. "That's none of your business," he said finally. "It became my business when you used my money," I said. "Who is she, Michael?" His jaw tightened. "You should stop digging. You might not like what you find." I took a step closer. "She has a daughter, doesn't she?" He stood abruptly. "Enough." But I didn't stop. 15 years old, right? Zoe. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Then, softly, I said, "Does Danielle know?" His eyes darted toward the door. "You don't understand what you're playing with." I smiled faintly. "Oh, I understand perfectly. I've spent my whole life being quiet while people like you spoke for me." "Not anymore." He took a step closer. "You think you're safe, because you have your little articles and cameras. You're not. People forget stories. But money. Money leaves trails, I interrupted. And I've already handed yours to the police. That was a lie, not yet true, but soon enough it would be. He stared at me, eyes cold and flat. You've made a big mistake. I held his gaze. So did you. He stormed out a moment later, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I stood there for a long time, my heart pounding like a drum. The recording light blinked steadily on the counter. When I pressed stop, I whispered to the empty room, "Got you." That night, I sent the audio file to Naomi and to Ms. Patel. Within minutes, both called back. Naomi's voice was low, tense. "Grace, this is big. He just admitted financial manipulation on record." Ms. Patel added, "If we can prove those transfers came from your accounts, it's not just abuse, it's fraud." "I'm not looking for revenge," I said. "I just want it to end." But deep down, I knew revenge was already in motion. The next morning, Danielle showed up. Her eyes were swollen, her voice trembling. "Mom, what did you do?" I looked at her calmly. "You'll have to be specific." "Michael's gone," she said, clutching her phone. "He left last night. He won't answer my calls. He took money from our joint account. Almost everything." I felt my stomach twist. "How much?" $40,000. I sank into a chair. That was more than Danielle had ever seen at once. She broke down crying. "He said he'd fix everything, that he'd talk to you." "What did you tell him?" "The truth," I said quietly. Maybe he didn't like hearing it. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "Do you know where he went?" I hesitated, then shook my head. "No. But I have a feeling he's not far." 2 days later, Naomi called again. "Grace, I don't know how to tell you this," she said, "but the police just arrested Michael Taylor. He tried to withdraw a large sum under a fake name at a bank downtown. There was also evidence linking him to suspicious fires, small ones, similar to what happened at your house." I closed my eyes. So it was him. Yes. They are questioning him now. And Grace, they found something else. "What?" "Records of payments to a woman named Nicole Jenkins." "You were right. There's a 15-year-old girl listed as his dependent." My hand went numb. "He told Danielle he'd been helping an old co-worker," Naomi continued. "But those payments were steady, monthly. Looks like child support." I whispered, "So the child is his?" "Yes." For a long time, I said nothing. The sound of my own heartbeat filled the room. After all these years, my daughter's husband had not only stolen from me, he had built another life entirely, using my money to fund it. That evening, Danielle came over again. She looked like a ghost. "It's true," she said, her voice breaking. "They confirmed it. He has a daughter. 15. She stared at me with hollow eyes. "Mom, I don't know what to do." I reached out and took her hand. For the first time in years, she didn't pull away. "You start over," I said softly. "Like I did." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Mom. For everything." I squeezed her hand. "We can't change what we did yesterday. But we can decide what kind of women we'll be tomorrow." She nodded slowly, trembling. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," I said. "But I'm giving it anyway." That night, when she left, I sat by the window and watched the streetlights flicker. For the first time in a long time, the house didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. Justice wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was a mother who finally got her voice back. Still, As I turned off the light and walked to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. Some debts, after all, take more than money to settle. And somewhere, deep down, I knew Michael wasn't done yet. I thought I was done being surprised. But life has a cruel way of whispering, not yet. After Michael's arrest, my house became quieter than I'd ever known it. No calls, no knocks, no headlines for a few blessed days. The quiet didn't feel lonely this time, it felt earned. Danielle stayed with me for a while. She cleaned the kitchen without being asked, brewed coffee in the mornings, and spoke in soft, careful sentences, like every word might break something fragile between us. We were learning how to speak to each other again, mother and daughter, without bitterness between. Then, one morning, the phone rang. It was Ms. Patel. "Grace," she said gently, "I need to tell you something before it reaches the papers." I sat down, my pulse rising. "What is it?" "Michael made a deal," she said. "He's cooperating. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he's given the authorities access to all his accounts and yours. He left a statement for you." "A statement?" "Yes. A letter, actually. It was sent through his lawyer this morning. It should arrive soon." My stomach dropped. "Do I want to read it?" There was a pause. "I think you have to." The letter arrived that afternoon. A simple white envelope with my name written in that same elegant script, the one I'd seen on the note with the rose. Danielle stood in the kitchen doorway as I opened it. She looked frightened, like the paper might explode. I unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was steady, unhurried, confident, the way he always was. "Grace, by the time you read this, I'll be somewhere between an interrogation room and a courtroom. Don't bother feeling sorry for me. I'm not writing for forgiveness. I'm writing because there's one more truth you don't know. You think I took your money to fund my mistakes. You're half right. But some of that money, the first big transfer, wasn't for me. It was for your daughter. Years ago, Danielle came to me desperate. She'd gambled through a friend's app, lost a large sum. She was terrified you'd find out. I helped her cover it, with your money. She promised she'd pay it back, but she never did. She told you it was me. I let her. It suited us both. As for Nicole and the child, yes, she's mine. I won't lie about that. But the truth is uglier. She didn't know I was married until years later. The money I sent her wasn't just guilt. It was survival. She'd been sick, Grace. You would have helped her too. You just didn't know it. I set the fire. Not to hurt you, to scare you. To make you stop digging. It was wrong. I was wrong. But part of me envied you, the way people listened when you finally spoke. I never had that. Maybe I deserved to burn a little for it. Take care of Danielle. She'll need you when she learns what you already know. Some of what you lost wasn't stolen, it was given. Michael. When I finished reading, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Danielle stood still, pale as paper. "What does it say?" she whispered. I folded the letter. "He told me something about you." She looked at me, eyes wide. "About me?" "Yes," I said softly. "About a debt." She sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. "I was so stupid, Mom. I was young, and I thought I could win it back. When I couldn't, I went to him. He said he'd fix it. I didn't know he'd take it from you. I swear I didn't." I stared at her, torn between anger and heartbreak. My own daughter, begging for forgiveness, the same way I once begged her to listen. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked quietly. "I was ashamed," she whispered. You were always so strong, so good with money. I didn't want you to see what a mess I'd made. Tears slid down her cheeks. And then, when you accused him, I let you. I let you believe it was all him, because I couldn't face the truth. I closed my eyes. Shame is a heavy language, and we both spoke it fluently. When I opened them again, I reached across the table and took her hand. It's done now, I said. We can't fix yesterday. But we can build something honest from tomorrow. She nodded through her tears. Do you still forgive me? I never stopped. We sat there for a long time, two women bound by blood and mistakes, holding on to the only thing left, truth. Naomi came by later that evening. She'd already read the statement. It was circulating quietly among reporters. This changes the narrative, she said. People are calling you a symbol of strength. But the letter makes me human, I finished. Not a hero. Just a woman who tried her best. She smiled. Sometimes that's stronger than being a hero. I handed her a copy of the letter. If you use it, tell the whole story. Don't make me a saint. I want people to know the truth isn't clean. It's complicated. It hurts. Naomi nodded. That's exactly why it matters. Weeks passed. Michael's case made headlines for a while, then faded like all stories do. He was sentenced to 3 years, not long, but long enough for reflection, I hoped. Nicole wrote me once, a short note thanking me for showing mercy to a man who didn't deserve it. She said her daughter, Zoe, was safe now, in school, and that she didn't hold anger toward me. I believed her. Danielle started working again, at a local shelter, helping older women navigate their finances. To make things right, she said. I didn't argue. Maybe redemption isn't about wiping the slate clean. Maybe it's just about finally picking up the chalk yourself. As for me, I planted a small rosebush by the porch. The same place where that first rose had been left, sharp and red and full of warning. Now it blooms with soft pink flowers. They remind me that even things born in fear can turn gentle when given light. One night, as the sun melted into the horizon, I sat outside with a cup of tea, listening to the quiet hum of the neighborhood. The sky was painted in that deep orange that only comes before darkness, the color of endings that still hold warmth. I thought about everything, the years of giving, the laughter, the betrayal, the smoke, the truth. And strangely, I felt grateful. Because in losing so much, I had finally found myself. People think justice is loud, courtroom verdicts, applause, headlines. But sometimes justice is just breathing. Living your life without apology. I picked one rose and held it in my hand. Its petals were soft, its thorns sharp, both parts of the same truth. Margaret joined me on the porch, carrying a glass of wine. You did it, Grace, she said quietly. You won. I smiled faintly. It doesn't feel like winning. It never does, she replied. That's how you know it's real. We sat in silence for a while. The air was cool, peaceful. The world had stopped shouting. Before heading inside, I whispered to the night, you hear that, world? I'm still here. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed it. Epilogue. Naomi's final article appeared 2 months later. Its title was simple, The Weight of Quiet Truth. It began with one line that made me cry the moment I read it. Grace Taylor didn't just survive what was done to her, she taught us how to face what we do to ourselves. Underneath was a photo of me in my garden, hands in the soil, lilies behind me, the rosebush blooming pink. I looked older, maybe even tired. But my eyes, they were alive. And that, I realized, was the real ending. Not the trials, not the money, not even the forgiveness. It was this peace. Hard-earned. Imperfect. Mine.